Hi, this is Mike Diercks, Regional Missionary Coordinator for the Presbytery of Ohio. And as we wrap up 2022, Brad Peppo, Regional Missionary Miami Valley, and I are just going to be reflecting on what's taken place in the Presbytery of Ohio through 2023, and then just open up the envelope a little bit into 2023. So Brad, thanks for being here. Let's just talk real quick. Let's kind of summarize some of the big things that God has done over this last year in the Presbytery of Ohio.
Okay, yeah. So looking back over my notes from the year, I noticed that we began the year with a bang. We had two of our church plants that had been in process for 3 or 4 years. We had 2 of those particularized. In March, we had Wilmington Reformed Church particularized, and then just a few weeks later, in early April, Light of the Nations in downtown Dayton particularized. So that was the completion of a lot of hours of work and a lot of man hours, a lot of resources, and we're just really thankful to see God bring those 2 groups to that point. We also this year some relationships and some connections that began with some churches that had expressed an interest in coming into the OPC, churches that were already congregations outside of the OPC. We've seen a bit of that happen. Actually, Mike, you can talk about one of those since you've been most involved with that.
Yeah, there's a group in Indiana that reached out to us, probably a year ago, and then kind of went quiet, but reached out again in the summertime and have expressed a desire to become part of the OPC. They've gone through kind of from an independency background, worked through Reformed confessions, really adopted the confessions, the Westminster standards, and they're like, this is the next logical step. So actually they're taking a vote on the 1st of January. So hopefully in the January edition, we can give you the full details, but it's a fun group. They're really excited about becoming part of the OPC. So just pray as they make the decision and follow through with the actions there.
Great. Yeah. And just very recently too, we received another inquiry along those lines of a church of sort of a Reformed persuasion that's been independent for a number of years that is now starting to reach out and express interest in coming into our presbytery. So that's been exciting too, and that'll be one of the things that we hope to see develop in 2023. In addition, I know we have a few churches, a few sessions in our presbytery right now who have been thinking about mother-daughter plants. So again, the details of those we'll see unfold in 2023. But there are a couple of sessions that are talking about that and thinking in that direction. So hopefully we'll be able to see that come to fruition next year as well. So when we wrapped up the Wilmington church plant, when it particularized, and then when the Light of the Nations church plant particularized, we sort of put our heads together and looked on the map and tried to figure out a couple of places that would be good places to press into sort of intentionally. And we had Chillicothe was one of those spots we were looking at, and Sydney, Ohio, somewhat north of Dayton, was another place that we were looking at. And we began putting out feelers in both of those places. I met with a pastor, actually a retired pastor in one in Chillicothe, and then an active pastor in Sydney. Started relationships with them, talked to them. The Sydney group has developed in an interesting way that I'll talk about and move on to another topic. Chillicothe, we made a solid contact there who had a couple of other families who've expressed some interest, and we're looking right now at hopefully beginning a study early in next year and see what we can do as far as developing a core group there in Chillicothe. The other ones.
Staying with Chillicothe, this guy's been very active in building up a base group, a seed group beyond just his family. So he's helping to really generate some good interest down there when we do step in and start a study.
Yeah, exactly the kind of guy you want to run into when you're doing a project like that. Yeah, it's been really fun to see. Mike, we have the other studies that are going on. One in Sharon,
Yeah, there's the Sharon Church, or the Sharon, Pennsylvania. The Grove City has been faithfully serving there for years. It started out Bible study, went to a preaching station, pandemic hit, kind of stepped back to a Bible study. The Bible study still meets every other week. Ben Ward is leading it, and it's slowly growing. There's people being invited out, so it's going well. One in Clarksburg, West Virginia, it's been meeting on a regular basis. They had kind of a step backwards, but I think they're finding their footing again and just trusting the Lord to start raising up some additional families there. But both of those are slow growth Bible studies that are happening kind of on the western or the eastern edge of our presbytery.
Okay, all right, good. Another development has been in the area of international ministry, and it's been largely in Dayton, but also beyond. When I mentioned earlier that Sydney had taken an interesting twist, I have to start the story with Dayton again. Dayton has been doing an English as a second language ministry. This is the second year now, so been doing it for a year and a half, and they've had 70 new students sign up this past school year. Usually about 25 at a time who are there, but 70 different people who have come through, and still a pool of 70 different people who are there on any given night. And as we were looking at that, as that was developing early on, it was becoming evident that we needed someone with a little more Spanish skills than we had. So last summer I went and did some study in Costa Rica in order to help this group along. At the same time, we had the Spanish group that was meeting at Living Water Church that James Stafford had been overseeing, and James took a call to Grace Church in Columbus. So we were trying to figure out a way to help them along, to keep them going, to give them at least preaching while they were meeting, and help give them some direction with respect to whether they wanted to become a mission worker at the OPC or become part of Living Water, help them way through their options there. So because of the training that I was doing for the Dayton work, decided that I would take that on as well. Well, at the same time, the Sydney pastor with whom I've been connected let me know that they were seeing an increase of Spanish-speaking folks in Sydney, and asked if I would be part of starting a Spanish-speaking ministry there. So we've been doing that in the evenings, on Sunday evenings. So there's probably about 10 people in attendance on that. Some English speakers from the church, a couple of Spanish speakers from the church, and then a couple of, sometimes as many as 6 or 7 additional Spanish speakers who are part of that ministry. And we're preaching through the Gospel of Luke, and that the people who are there seem really engaged. It's been a real pleasure working with them. So that's the Hispanic ministry that's been going on in Dayton and in Springfield and in Sydney. And I've actually been, I think I mentioned on the last call, even looking around for someone to come over and help us with that. Someone whose language skills are much better than mine. The other thing that's continued in the Dayton area is the Muslim ministry that's been going on out of Light of the Nations. This is a group of Turkish folks that we've been meeting with. It's almost been 2 years now. About 3 months ago, we moved our meetings. We had been meeting once a month. We now meet twice a month. In the process of those meetings over the past few months, we've had additional people come in, even from outside of the Turkish community. One man who has been attending from time to time is pretty much the first imam in the Dayton area, and he was instrumental in, I think, the planting of the additional 13 mosques that are here now. He was the one that planted the first one. So had lunch with him a few times, talked with them. So that ministry continues to go on. Our ladies get together from time to time for discussion and for lunch. So that's been fun, and they're still very enthused about it. We're going through the Gospel of Luke in that one also, and then they'll go through a passage of the Quran on their turn. We alternate the 2 weeks by 2 weeks on that. The other thing, and this is not just in Dayton, but also in Columbus, you, Mike, have been involved with this, and also Mike McCabe has been involved in this, and this is the Ministry of International Friendships Incorporated. The Dayton chapter, when we moved into our building at Light of the Nations, we had a lot of space we were looking to fill, and because we were leaning into the direction of international ministry anyway, we contacted them. This is a group that, best way I can describe it is they intercept international students that are coming into different universities. And in Dayton, we have 4 or 5 that they work with. and provide community for these international students. The vast majority of these students are not believers, but they have small groups where they meet. They have social events that they do, and then they have a big weekly event. And the one in Dayton ranges in between 50 to 75 kids. And again, the vast majority of them non-believers, but they've been working through Gospel of Mark. They've been working through the book of Proverbs with them. They'll sing praise songs together. And then what the ministry does is encourage area churches and area families to take these kids in, especially for the holidays. And a number of folks in our local churches had the opportunity to do that for Thanksgiving, and some people are planning the same sort of thing around Christmas. And then again, Mike, I don't know if you want to comment about what's going on in Columbus with that ministry, and Mike McCabe's involvement in particular.
Yeah, I know Mike leads a couple of Bible studies. One that's a evangelism type of Bible study. One's a discipleship. His is focused primarily on the Chinese speaking students. Ourselves, we do a lot of the hosting. So it's that weekend, special 4th of July, Labor Day, those type of things. And it is that cross section where the countries that would never allow the gospel to come into it are letting their people come here, and we're able to share the gospel with them. Yeah, so that the ministry locally is a lot of the bring them in to host them for a weekend, holiday, just an opportunity where students that are coming from countries where the gospel isn't allowed are coming here, and we get to bring the gospel to them. God's bringing them to us so that we can share the gospel. And then as they build and grow, they can take that gospel back into their countries.
Right. And our experience, we had 3 girls from India for Thanksgiving, and they're just so curious. And part of their interest in American culture, it involves religion. They want to know what the religious differences are. We had a lot of questions. These were some young ladies that were with us, so we had a lot of questions about sort of courtship practices and arranged marriages and things like that. Then, I mean, it went into well, why religiously, why do you handle it this way? You just never find I think a more accessible and eager audience to find out, to learn more things about the Christian faith. It's been really incredible experience. An extension of that a bit is we've also in Dayton, we've had a number of different campus ministries on the different campuses here. Presently, the only one we have going on is at Cedarville University, but we have 30 students that are coming out for that, working through the book of Ephesians, and that's been a real joy. But that's something that a couple of other churches in our area are looking at ways to strengthen the ministry to the college kids and strengthen the campus ministry. Even the idea of bringing on a guy specifically to be going around the different campuses and doing that. So that's something we hope to see develop next year as well. One other thing I'll just report that happened out of Light of the Nations, but it was Presbytery wide, is that Tyler Dietrich at Light of the Nations hosted it was a weekend, an evangelism weekend. There was some training. There was a whole lot of practice out in the community. You might see the Outward OPC had a really nice sort of serialized version of the New Horizons article on what Tyler did there. But the kids, they seem to learn a lot. They seem to really dig in and engage people very boldly. It was really fun to see what they were doing. So this is something that Light of the Nations is looking at doing regularly. We just had such a good experience with it that we hope it's something that we're able to offer the Presbytery in the years to come as well.
And maybe we can expand it to beyond just youth.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, so good. So as we look into 2023, just to kind of peel back a little bit, we've got the Hispanic ministry, where that's heading. Lord willing, you've got a resource that may possibly be a fit to come in and really take that ministry kind of to that next level of real gospel engagement and church engagement. We've got Bible studies going on. We've got a couple of churches looking at planting a church, a mother-daughter. We've got a couple of churches inquiring as to how they might navigate through the process of becoming an OP. Some, like the one right at the cusp of making that
Right.
decision, others further up the line from that. What else, as we think about as a presbytery, what else is there that we should be thinking about?
Well, I think, a number of things that we mentioned that certain individual churches are doing. I think if we could see more of the same in other churches. Other churches would see some of this stuff again, like with IFI and things like that. Just how simple it is, how easy it really is, and how rewarding it really is. Each one of our churches has something in their area where they can reach out, where they can find ways to connect with people, find ways to bring people in. The short list that you just mentioned there, it sounds like there's plenty to be done in 2023. But if as that load is shared in between more and more particular churches in particular places, then we could just see lots and lots of fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that, I've developed and have offered it out, and I'll offer it again, is just kind of, how does a church create a culture of church planning? Many times we just wait until a group shows up, knocks on our door, or it just, the natives get restless enough that something happens.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the other way, which is creating a mindset within the church on, we need to be thinking about, how do we duplicate ourselves? How do we self-propagate? And I've got some ideas on that can be brought to a session, for like a sessional retreat discussion, even a Sunday school or a workshop, something to really practically, step by step, how do you create a culture of church planting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff.
So, all right, Brad, I appreciate your time.
My
God bless
pleasure.
you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year if I don't see you before.
All right, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.